Aslema. Today we have an honorable guest from Tunisia. Um, I present to you Oussama Zebda, who is the president of the International Youth Council France Association in Tunisia. Hello.
Hello, Ilya. Привет and Aslama. Hi to all our colleagues and our friends from Russia. And hello and Aslama from the land of democracy, Tunisia.
Wonderful. Today we are going to discuss the first tour during the current presidential elections in Tunisia, which took place this Sunday. You are welcome to ask your questions through comments, and I'll ask them, and I'll ask Osama all the questions you wrote in the end of our translation. Now I want to tell several words about the modern history of Tunisia, because for those of you who are not well acquainted with the history of this country, it would be important to understand what is going on through its history. So Tunisia fought for independence after the Second World War, and the first president of Tunisia was Habib Bourguiba, or in Arabic Habib Bourguiba, who was a wonderful person, amazing person. On the one hand, a little bit authoritarian, but on the other hand, Europocentric and progressive. He fought for the liberties, for the rights of the people, but at the same time he established a strong regime and ruled until the 1987, when, as a result of the coup d'etat, his close official Zine al-Abidine bin Ali came to power. And Zine bin Ali ruled Tunisia until the well-known events of 2011, when the Arab Spring came to the Arab world and everything started in Tunisia. Osama, can you tell us what was the role of the youth during this process? How did the Arab Spring started in Tunisia, and what are your personal memories about this controversial, wonderful, and really historic events?
Okay. Thank you, Ilya. So Tunisia Jasmine Revolution, is the first popular uprising to topple an established government in the MENA region. Since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. It's also the spark that ignited and inspired other revolutions in the regions, as you have mentioned. So to summarize the Tunisian Revolution, the Jasmine Revolutions, it unfolded in three phases. So the first one on December 17th, 2010, a young Tunisian street vendor, Mohamed Bouazizi, set himself on fire in hopelessness to protest his treatment at the hands of the authorities. So demonstrations broke out in his rural hometown, followed by protests by youth in other areas in the country. A brutal security crackdown followed. So secondly, when protests reached the capital, Tunis, the government responded with even more brutality, arresting demonstrators, activists, and shutting down the internet. And lastly, the President Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali shuffled his cabinet and promised to create 300,000 jobs. But it was too late, because young protesters now just wanted the regime to fall down and its president to strip it of any power. So on January 14, Ben Ali and his family fled the country, taking refuge in Saudi Arabia. This act marked the end of one of the Arab world's most repressive regimes. It was a victory for people, power, and perhaps the first time ever in history that an Arab dictator has been removed by a revolution that was run and led by youth. So rather than a coup d'etat.
Well, and were there people who were not satisfied with the events going on? Were there supporters of Ben Ali who were skeptical towards the Arab Spring?
Yes, actually, in the beginning, the supporter of Zain al-Abidin Ben Ali who didn't accept this changement. Especially, they didn't expect like the revolution will be started online via social media, because the young generation has used like the social media like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to share their idea, to organize the protests and to organize the campaign in order to change the regime. So they didn't like was expecting, because the what make the Tunisian revolution different from the other revolution, which was started by the social media. That's why, like in the second phase, the government shutting down the internet as like a solution for to limit the power of the young delegation. But this is wasn't like an obstacle for the young generation, because they kept like their communication. We have organized like several campaign in all the different cities of Tunisia, and ending to the capital, Tunis.
Yes, yes. And what happened later? How were the events going on after the revolution itself? Who
Okay.
took the presidential place for the first time after Ben Ali?
After the fall of Ben Ali, there were three interim governments before the first democratic elections took place in 2011 for the Constituent Assembly. This led into the formation of the Tunisia first democratic government in late 2011, and the Tunisian politician Monsef Marzouk was appointed as president. For people who doesn't know, like Mr. President Monsef Marzouki, he was the first democratically elected president of Tunisia after the January 14th revolution in 2011. A seminal moment in modern Arab history, which related the honest and onset of multiple popular revolutions throughout the Arab world, elected to the presidency by the Tunisian National Constituent Assembly. And so President Monsef Marzouki is Tunisia's first president in modern history to arrive at position through fair and transparent elections. So upon the assumption of presidency, Monsef Marzouki embarked on the mission of open the doors of the presidential palace through campaign of transparency, participative democracy, and by encouraging civil society and safe public space for civil organization. So during his mandate, Monsef Marzouki was a voice of social and revolutionary activism, calling for civil rights, and transformed the presidency into a position of service to the Tunisian public. So, occupying a middle ground between secularist and Islamist political standpoints, Monsef Marzouki was an instrumental in creating dialogue between all political, social, and religious tendencies in Tunisia, which was the result that the Nobel Committee has dedicated the Nobel Peace Prize for 2015 to be awarded to the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet for its decisive contribution to the building of a democracy in the North Africa and the Middle East. For those who don't know, like the National Dialogue Quartet, so it's composed by four organizations in Tunisia, which are the Tunisian General Labor Union, the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handcrafts, also the Tunisian Human Rights League, and the Tunisian Order of Lawyers. This organization represents different sectors and values in Tunisia society, working life, and welfare principles of rule of law and the human rights. So In 2014, Tunisia passed a new constitution, and later in the year, the first democratic parliamentary elections since the revolution began were held. The results were announced on 27 October 2014 with the secularist Nida Tunis party, which was founded in 2012, winning a popularity within 38% of the votes counted. The following month, the first presidential elections were held, and Beji Qaid Sebsi became president with 55.68% of the run of votes. So Mr. Sebsi won Tunisia's first free presidential election in 2014.
And these were the first direct elections, because Monsef Mazrouki
yes,
took his place because of the will of the assembly, and
yeah,
Qaeda Sebsi was elected directly for the first time after the
exactly.
revolution.
So yes, so Mr. Sebsi won Tunisia's first free presidential election in 2014 and was credited with largely maintaining stability in the country during his almost 5 years rule. Sebsi was seen as a unifying figure, but was ultimately unable to bring prosperity or lasting calm to to a country beset by economic crisis and funding of sporadic deadly attacks. So at the age of 92, he was the oldest sitting president in the world. At the time of his death, Mr. Essebsi had previously confirmed that he was not planning to run for a re-election. So, and the fun fact that the President Qaid Sebsi passed away on the day of the Republic Day of Tunisia, and his wife Shadlia Saida Farhat died on last Sunday morning, aged 83, as voting was getting under the way. So the couple, the presidential couple, marked two remarkable days in the Tunisian modern history. So, which symbolize their how can I say the great value that they brought to the Tunisian democracy and to the Tunisian people.
And how do you see the difference between the rule of Qaid Sebsi and Monsef Mazrouki?
Okay, so the first thing, Mr. Monsef Marzouki was an independent president, but Mr. Qaid Sebsi, he was representing a very strong party in that period. He created, which was founded in 2012. He was a very wise man because he's not a new guy in the political area and the political place, because he worked with the first president, the founding president of Tunisia, who is Habib Bourguiba. He was minister and prime minister during his that period. Also, he worked with the second president of Tunisia, Ben Ali, but he was for the beginning of his mandate, and he continued as a lawyer. He continued his career as a lawyer. After the revolution, he came back. He held several positions in the Tunisian government. He helped to set as I said before, he's unifying all the parties, because when a country stand out of a revolution, it will be a lot of opinions, a lot of strategies, a lot of agendas, a lot of prospection. So what make Essebsi different from and unique from Mustafa Marzouki is his capacity to convince the other parties, which is like very important to the stability of the political area here in Tunisia. But the problem with Monsef Marzouki, he was like he didn't have like that diplomatical skills that Sipsi has. Even when Syria, the war of Syria started, civil war started in Syria, he closed our Tunisian embassy there in Syria and cancelled all the diplomatical relations between Tunisia and Syria, which was not a wise decision from his part. But comparing with the exterior relations between Essebsi and Monsef Marzouki, like I guess like Essebsi, he's like more experienced and has like a lot of skills, and he's like a very wise man who know what decision that he should take, especially with international society and the other countries.
Okay, thank you. Now I think we should go back or go forward towards the current elections, and there are so many candidates who are going to become who were going to become the president of Tunisia. I think there are around 20 candidates from different political parties and independent candidates. Now the first tour is over, and we know the two winners who will fight for the seat, the presidential seat, several weeks later. But can you tell about the most influential, the most bright candidates who ran for presidential elections and who were going to fight for that seat?
Okay, so as you said, the election was brought forward after the death in July of Mr. Beja Qaid Sibsi, the first democratically elected president who took office in 2014. It's widely viewed as a test of one of the oldest, youngest democracies. So, as you said, we have not only 20 candidates, but 26 candidates, including two women who are running in the election. So, as preparation for that, Tunisia airs the first great debate ahead of presidential poll. In order to represent each candidate to the Tunisian citizens and to the Tunisian community. And also the Higher Independent Institute for Election in Tunisia has done like a great campaign to push the young citizen to register in this presidential election. And they've done a great job because we have like 2 other millions new registered to the presidential election, for the presidential election. Like for totally we have 7 million citizens who are registered in the presidential election to vote. But comparing with the first the presidential election that was held in 2014, we have like it has been like low at 45%, despite an early call for young Tunisians to get out and vote. So, the key players in the presidential elections, I could say like there is 5 key players, which who are first of them, Mr. Youssef al-Shahid, who is the current Prime Minister of Tunisia. The second one is Nabil al-Qarbi, and who is he's now in jail because of money laundering charges, and he's very popular in the Tunisian society because he has a television channel which is called Nisma. The third one is Abdel Fattah Mourou, who is the interim speaker of parliament, and he was the Nahda's first ever presidential candidate.
And I think
And the fourth one,
we should now say that Ennahda is a Muslim party of Tunisia,
yes,
and it has some
yes.
connections even with the brother Muslims from Egypt.
Actually, Nahda represent themselves not like an Islamist party, but a democratic Islamist party. Even with the simulation or the common point between the brothers in Egypt, or they have a very different strategies. They have a very different point of view in a very Islamic.
More conservative.
Yes, which are more near to the Tunisian culture. Also, the fourth presidential election, who are one of the key players, is Abdelkrim Zbidi, who is a former minister of defense and a medical doctor by training. This was the key players that represent, how can I say, the most influencing personality in Tunisia, as our local media and national media done and represented them in the local TV and magazines and written media. But it was the result of the election was a surprise and a shock for all the Tunisian.
Yes, okay, but we will
Yeah.
talk about a little bit later
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there would be a culmination, okay?
Yes.
And now I want to ask you, I'll show a map from the previous presidential elections which shows that Tunisia actually is divided. We can see that in the north, people voted for Khaled al-Sabsi, while the southern regions of Tunisia supported Monsef al-Mazrouki.
Okay.
What is the difference between those regions? What is the cleavage? Why do people vote differently? And do you think that this cleavage still remains in the Tunisian society and still somehow affects the preferences of people?
Okay. So, first of all, I would like to say an information, which is in Tunisia we have more than 220 parties registered in Tunisia. So imagine the amount of diversity that we have in our local political area. So, as you said, we have some different point of view, some different opinions, some different tendency between the people living in the northern part and the coastal part of Tunisia and the ones who live in the interior cities of Tunisia. Maybe this is influenced by the nature of those places, because the deeper you go to the south in Tunisia, the most the people are conservative there, and this is maybe related with the nature of the economy, economical factor that that have a great fact impact in
Okay.
the nature of the people, because the Tunisian economy is based on tourism, and all the most known touristic places and tourist attractions are in the north and the coastal part of Tunisia. Those people are open-minded, which prefer, in general, circulated parties. So, but in the other part, the the other cities are more conservative, and they're comparing with the people who is living in the northern part of Tunisia and the coastal part of Tunisia. They have like very strict habits, very strict traditions, and they always prefer the Islamist parties, the more conservative parties. So if you could see, like the northern part have chosen Mr. Monsef Marzouki because he's an independent. He's like a civic person. He's not. He believes in the separation between religion and state. And in the other hand, the other cities have voted to the candidates that represent the Islamist parties in Tunisia. So this is the main reason that
Maybe
create this.
you are now talking about the current elections, not about the previous one.
Yeah, it's like it's the same because
Because
even in
during the last
yeah
elections, as I see from the map, Monsef Mazuki was supported in the southern regions and in the regions which are located not on the shore of the Mediterranean. So, as I understand, those regions are more conservative, according to your
yeah
words.
Yeah. Also, maybe the origins of Mons of Marzouki is from the south of Tunisia. So this is also
Plays a role.
implicate in yes, in the results of the election.
Okay. Uh,
But I would like to state like there is like three key players. As I said before, like there is more than 220 parties in Tunisia. The most popular three one are Nida Tunis, the big town, so led by Hafez Qaid Sibsi, son of the descended president Beji Qaid Sibsi. It was founded as an alternative to Islamist party in Nahda, and it won most seats in 2014 parliamentary election, but two-thirds of its members have subsequently joined other parties. The second popular party is Tahya Tunis party, led by the Prime Minister Youssef al-Shahed after he left Nida Tunis. And it was formed in late January 2019, and it was expected to draw many former Nida Tunis voters. The third most popular party is Ennahda party. It's led by 76 years old Rashid Ghannouchi, who is running for parliament. Instead of running for president, Ghannouchi is aiming to a top of such as a speaker of the assembly of or a prime minister maybe. Also, it's like rebranded itself as party of Muslim Democrats instead of an Islamist party in 2016. So this is like the main three parties that control the political area in Tunisia
and
right
do
now.
this party have particular regions where they have a traditional support?
Actually, no, because even if you look in the number of inhabitants per region, you don't find like one region composed by one category of people. It's like mixed. So it's not like a very in general. Tahya Tunis and Nida Tunis is they have like great a lot of offices and branches there in the coastal part and the north part of Tunisia, because even the first president of Tunisia, Mr. Habib Bourguiba, played a very great role in order to promote this region, comparing with the other region. So, but at the same time, all the parties are trying to balance between the regions and to promote themselves in all the Tunisian region. But as I said, like the one existing thing that when you go deeper and in south or even in west of the Tunisia, you will find like more conservative people, more people who are conserving their traditions, their habits, and so on. So this is maybe impact the choice of the citizens, Tunisian citizens also.
Okay. Well, and we can also state that the capital is located on the north, and probably
Yes.
more people, like northern regions, are more densely populated than the southern, and
Yeah.
the largest cities are also located in the north.
Exactly.
So the younger population is also concentrated on the north, and the
Yes.
population is employed in services and industry, while on in the southern regions, more people work in agriculture.
That's true.
Okay, all that somehow influence the preferences of Tunisians. But now let's come back again to the results of the election, or we shall also discuss the role of your organization in these elections, because your team uh, your team participated in these elections as observers. And for me personally, because I also was an observer during our presidential elections and during the elections in Moscow Duma, Moscow Parliament, for me it's interesting how all the process is going on in Tunisia. For example, in Russia, an observer comes to the electoral office, to the point where people vote at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you are going to sit here until 12 o'clock, observing not only the process of voting but also how do the voices are counted, and how are they registered, and how it is going on in Tunisia.
Okay. So in the election period, the observer, as you said, our organization, and as International Youth Council France Association, all of the members of our office participated in not only in the organization of this election, but as observer. Our we some of our members have participated as organizer. Like we have like some members who have been selected as president of some local electoral office in some region. Also, we had some participants who have been members of volunteer in the election process. Also, some observer. And the observation process in Tunisia, how it works, especially in the election. So Tunisia, each election, we host observer from different nationalities. Like we have like delegation from the European Union, delegation from African Union, from civic societies, from media. Even each candidate has his own volunteers and has his own observers. So in each electoral office, you will find observer from each candidate, from each party, from each civic society, from international community, from international organization, and they control and they observe the election process and, as you said, the accountant of the votes,
At every polling
and
station.
even yes, even in the reporting stage. And also, we have like a central place for media, which is located in the capital, Tunis, where you will find more than 1,000 reporter and journalists from all over the world that supervising and observing the Tunisian election. So what makes like the Tunisian election unique from the other one, I mean from the other regions and from the other countries from the MENA region, is the transparency. Like if there is any reclamation, it will be directly transferred to the higher independent institute of election in Tunisia. For example, for this year election, presidential election, we have the higher institute, independent institute of election has received more than 650 reclamations, and after analyzing them, they have only considered 150 reclamations, and after that they will transfer it to the court. They will decide if there is any crime or any problem regarding the internet, regarding the election. But according to, for example, my organization and the Tunisian Civic Society, we could consider that 99.9% from the election process in Tunisia is right and is well organized from the beginning, from the early bird of voters to the end of the election process. It was well organized, well controlled, well prepared, and there is like transparency, even a great communication with the journalists. There is it was so secure. There is more than 70,000 army were implemented to secure all the election process in Tunisia. So
And
we
do you
could
have
consider it.
cameras at each polling station?
What?
Do you have special cameras at each polling station which like recorded the whole process at every polling station?
Yes, actually, each agent and each volunteer, each journalist has like his own badge, his own like the journalists have like their jackets. Also, all the offices of the election was held like in the local schools, because it's like more nearby to all the population, because in each town in Tunisia we have like schools, higher schools, or maybe even universities, and the higher independent institute of election has used those institutions for the election process. They have even created a call center just to answer the questions of the citizens and the registered citizen to this presidential election. So if anyone has any question regarding his office or his registered number, if he has any issues or even any reclamation, he could call that number, that call center that the high independent institute of election have created, just to answer all the questions of the Tunisian and even the international community. So this grade of transparency, this grade of democracy, this grade of freedom, this grade of flexibility and easy access to the informations. Because if you check the official website of the Higher Institute and the Independent Institute of Election in Tunisia, you will find like each 3 hours or maybe each 2 hours the institute publish the current percentage of each of the result of each candidate. Like it was like in real time. And just another fact that the election process is done manually, because the Tunisian constitution and the Tunisian law, electoral law, oblige like this institution to use only papers, even in accounting the whole process. And that's why it takes like more than 24 hours to finalize and to publish the first like results. Even another thing, that all the reports of each regional and local electoral office will be published in the website of the institution, Higher Institute, Independent Institute of Election, and will be accessible for all the institutions, for all the Tunisian citizens to verify and for more transparency of the electoral results, presidential election for 2019.
And were there at least some individual incidents where there were some electoral fraud, or maybe are there any politicians who claim that those elections are not legitimate?
Actually, we don't have like this reclamations because it was like so secure, it was so supervised, it was like very prepared and well organized, because the Higher Institute, even with that small time, they have like the needed skills and the needed experience to organize this election on time, which could be like how can I say, which could be like a symbolic or maybe a model for the other African country and the Arab world, because even this transparency we couldn't find in even some European countries.
Yes, and that's great. So, we now have two candidates who will fight each other in the next tour. Let's
Yes.
let's start with um, with Mr. Nabi Karawi. Uh, I'll
Okay.
show his portrait, and you will tell in more details. You have already mentioned him during our discussion, but maybe there are more things to tell about him. How is he perceived in the society? What is his personal history? Was he always a citizen of Tunisia? Maybe he traveled around the world trying to get some experience. What is his party? What is his political agenda?
Okay, so according to the Higher Independent Institute of Elections, which the results of the presidential election of 2019 were published a few hours before our this conversation. So Qais Said and Nabil Qarwi are leading the 24 other candidates, who included the prime minister, two former prime ministers, a former president, and defense ministers, and appear certain to advance to a runoff vote next month. So, as you said, the first one, Mr. Qarwi, is 56 years old, a media magnate, has been behind bars since August 23 on charges of money laundering. And the Tunisia judiciary has refused to release him 3 times but his lawyer said on Monday they would make a fourth request within 24 hours. Also, he's far more involved in the political establishment. He's a founding member of the late president Beji Qaid Sebsi's Nida Tunis party, which he recently split from. Also, how can I say? The date of the second and final round between the top two candidates has not been announced yet because it could be like they will wait the court if there is any reclamation, if there is any reclamation from any candidate. But the fun fact that this guy Nabil Qarbi, has prepared his presidential campaign for earlier 2 years before, and he used his non-governmental organization to promote his action and to promote his name and his television channel in the poorest places in Tunisia. So his strategy was like to go directly to those undeveloped area in Tunisia, the rural area in Tunisia, like the border cities and the southeast part and top northeast eastest side of Tunisia, where there is like much poverty and a lot of unemployed people, and he brought to them like some aid, some food, some support, financial support to those community. That's why he have like prepared a very supporter base. And those, if you see like the age of those people, they were from 40 and 50 years old to plus plus. So he was, how can I say, attracting the aged category of the Tunisian population, also the most poor, the poorest region in Tunisia. So he was sibling those two people and those two kinds, those two categories from the Tunisian population. And there is like a fun fact now in the social media. They say he's like using his aids because the most aids like that they have done that he gave to those regions is like the pasta and the food. So there is like a lot of anecdote about this candidate, especially using the pasta the pasta like slogans, while how can I say it, as to criticize the Calvary campaign, because a lot of specialists, a lot of experts said it's illegal to use a non-governmental organization for political purposes. And it's really bad to use the image of poor people just to serve his proper political campaign. So his campaign, all of his campaign is criticized by the Tunisian community and the Tunisian political community. But I don't know what the next days will bring to us. Maybe we don't know anyway.
So he comes
We're still,
he comes with some social agenda, trying to show
yes.
himself as a help of the poor, but being the rich. And
Yeah.
what are his like political preferences? Is he a right-wing candidate or left-wing?
Actually, he's representing himself like, how can I say? In Tunisia, we don't have like that mentality of left or right. we have like conservative, maybe Islamist, because the religion here in Tunisia, it's not like the nature of Islam here in Tunisia. It's not like this the other Arab countries, because we're using the middle of Islam, like. We're not like very conservative. We're not like very how can I say open. It's like in the middle. So he's representing himself like that guy who's very near to the Tunisian habits, very near to the Tunisian nature. He's open and at the same time conservative. So he's representing himself like a social leader, the voice of the poor, like the Superman or maybe the Batman of Tunisia that will decrease the poverty grade in Tunisia and the employment rate in Tunisia.
And is he supported by other rich businessmen of Tunisia? Or there is a competition between business community?
Actually, there is no transparency in his political campaign, because he's not. There is no transparency about the money he's using during his campaign, because he's like a businessman. He has like a lot of companies. He has like NGOs. He has like a television channel. So he has like all what he needs to succeed his presidential campaign.
Well, I think now it's clear about him, and we can move on.
But
Yes?
I will add another information. The two candidates are outside of the system. Like this is the result of the Tunisian presidential election for 2019. Represent as the local media and the local magazines say, earthquake in the Tunisian history, because it's the anti-system independent candidate who won this election. Because as I said before, like I have mentioned, 5 or 4 candidates that who are representing parties and very known parties here in Tunisia. But those candidates are independent, are maybe Karoui, he has like his own party, but it was created just few months before the presidential election, which make him like not very strong party. Like it's not like he don't have like a strong members database here in Tunisia. So it was like an earthquake, a shock to all the political community here in Tunisia. So let's move to the second candidate, who is
Who is
Qais
actually the
Assaid.
who is actually the first candidate, because he collected the largest share of the votes,
Yes.
and he got something like 18%, while the second candidate took only 15.
Yes, that's true. So he's a law professor and political outsider. So as you said, he's 18.9. So it was how can I say? His political neophyte side is conservative constitutionalist who has shown at political parties and mass relays. Instead, he opted to go door to door to explain his policies. So he has refused all the supported financial support from the businessman. He didn't use social media to promote himself. He didn't use like television's special discussion circles to promote his program. The only thing he used is door-to-door explanation. He went to the local cafe, local supermarket, to local regions, to local places just to promote his program. Also, he has defended the death of the penalty death. Also, he criminalized the homosexuality here in Tunisia and the sexual assault law that punishes unmarried couples who engage in public displays of affections. Also, Qais Said advocates a rigorous overhaul of the constitution and voting system to decentralize power so that the will of the people penetrates into central government and puts an end to corruption. Also, Qais Said was unknown in Tunisia until after the 2011 revolution, when he started coming on television shows breaking down the technicalities of constitution. He speak. The fun fact about Qais Said is he speaks classical Arabic, and many people here jokingly call him as a robot because he is so specific when it comes to setting the law. But the Tunisian love him, and because he's a clean and honest, he doesn't have a party. Even he, it wasn't like his intention to and purpose to participate in the presidential election. Like his students in the universities, those who are like the back heroes that supported his presidential campaign and pushed him to participate in the presidential election. Even as I said before, Qais Said is not using social media, is not using internet. I don't know if he even could use those new technologies because he's like from the old schools. But all the Tunisian youth love him because he has like he gives you that impression of this person that know all the right thing, all the legal thing, all the exact thing. He know the laws. He has like a great portfolio. He have been like he has been like leading several international organizations, and the international community support him and respect him. So there is also um, another perspective from this result, which is the Tunisian voters fed up from the typical parties because they are saying the same thing. Everyone knows the economical situation here in Tunisia. We have like a lot of economical crisis. We have like a lot of challenges, and all the parties are the same, repeating the same strategies, the same words, the same solutions. So what make this result a political earthquake is that the voters of Tunisia have chosen how can I say, an anti-system, systematic candidates, an independent candidates. As I said, like Nabil Qari is not candidate but he has like recently opened and founded his political party just to enter and to participate in the presidential election. So, and the most important thing that the people who have voted to Qais Said are youth. The most of the voter of Qais Said represent the youth category. But in the other side, those who have voted to Nabil Qari are the aged and how can I say, the uneducated person.
So
Okay.
students united with their grandparents voting
Yes.
for Kaiser Said. Uh,
Yes.
yes. So maybe uh, they used the new media, so-called, I mean, social networks, because students are usually well acquainted with those techniques.
That's true. Actually, even as I said before, Qais Said doesn't have like an office, an official office for his presidential campaign. He has like a normal apartment with two rooms, maybe, and it's a very small way. Maybe it's like 150 meters square, comparing with the other candidates who have spent a lot of money. Like have like some candidates who had spent more than 3 billion million dinars, which is around $1 million or maybe more in the media campaign of their presidential campaign. So, but in the other hand, with the low cost, it's like a new inspiration, or maybe it could be like a title of a book, "How to Be a President with Low Cost." I think that Qais Said will be like the main topic of that book.
Yes.
So this is what make Qais Said different from the other candidates. So the other one has used like all of his fortune and all of his power, all of his money just to propaganda himself, to advertise himself, to brand his name using like this non-governmental organization, using his television channel, and the other one used his own voice. He used his own students just to run to the presidential election. And you could see like the huge difference between the two rating, because there is like more than 100,000 maybe voters or maybe more between the two first candidates for the second round.
Yes. These two candidates are really very different. They differ in their age. They differ in their uh, capital. They are different in their attitude towards the wealth. They have different audience. They have different supporters, uh,
Exactly.
and they do not have. Do they have like some straight and understandable program from which you can assume how are they going to organize their internal politics? How are they going
Okay,
to
so
restore the Tunisian economy?
okay, I think that in the next few days, like they will, how can I say, resume their campaign, presidential campaign. Even the national television and the other, even the private television, will organize a debate between the two candidates online, and it will be in front of all the voters, all of Tunisian, and it will be broadcasted internationally. For the last debates had like more than 3 million viewers from all over around the world, not only in Tunisia. It was like the main topic even of the Arab region. So, of course, each candidate has his own program and his own strategy for the future. If he will be selected, like as a president of Tunisia, and what make, for example, the program of Qais Said is very generic, like. Uh, Instead, like the other, despite the others candidates, he didn't choose like a lot and a lot of points. Just he wasn't enumerating a lot of solutions. He was just giving in general very simple programs, very understandable, and he was like has a clear view for Tunisian strategy. Actually, I don't have in front of me now his program, but he's published it, I think, in his in the social media, I guess. But the thing that I know that the program of Qais Said is very simple, is very generic comparing with the other candidates. The Nabil Qarbi also used the fact of decreasing the number of poverties in Tunisia, the rating of poverty and employment here in Tunisia. So I would like also what Tunisian voters want from this election and what they consider when in choosing like the best candidate for the presidential. I think that there is three main points to select each candidate. The first one is the economy, which is the number one issue. So in Tunisia, there is 15% unemployment rate, and 1/3 of university graduates have no job. Also, the second point is security, because we have like I know that Tunisia is very stable, and comparing with even European countries, we have like the same security, even like France. But the security is still fragile because this summer, for example, there have been 3 suicide bombings in different places here in Tunisia, but it was controlled and it was away from the people. It wasn't like a lot of. It wasn't like it wasn't like
There were
people
not
dead
so many
there.
injured people and
Yeah,
no deaths.
yeah. No, yes, there is no death. Also, the government is still unresponsive because despite the progress we had in the past 9 years, 2/3 of Tunisians says that the government does little or nothing to address their needs. Because, you know, after the revolution, we had like a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, especially the economical one, the social one. The people demand a lot from state, and if you have like state with limited resources, with limited infrastructure, with a lot of how can I say, of deficit, with a deficit budget of the state, and with a very how can I say, hard situation. It won't be like very easy for the government to satisfy all the needs of the population. Even the Tunisian knows that, but they still not satisfied with the results of the past governments, Tunisian governments after the revolution. So that's why even the presidential election for 2019, many experts said like it's like a new revolution in Tunisia. This revolution wasn't like the first one. It was by the voters and by the voice of the people who have chosen a new thing, a new anti-system candidate.
Yes, and from the political point of view, as you said, uh, Qais Said is a conservative candidate, and despite the fact that he's supported by the youth, he claims he presents himself as a old school guy with support of conservative values. And what about Nabil Al Karoui? Is he also a conservative one, or being a rich businessman, he like tries to implement modern European values to Tunisia?
Okay, so I would like to say even Qais Said is not that conservative. He's not from an Islamist party of from a very closed-minded. He's not a closed-minded person, but he has like as he said before, like he's using like the Quran, the Islamic uh, religion as an inspiration for as like a legislative inspiration for the laws. So this is like the main difference. But even in his personality, he's not like that closed-minded, because even from his interviews with the media, he's always showing like those values that are brought from the Western from the West side and from the Western cultures. So I don't consider him like very conservative guy, but as he said and as he declared that he will use the Islamic religion as a source of inspiration for the proposing the new laws. Even Nabil Qarwi, I don't consider him as a conservative person, but he has like at the same time he's not he's a middle person anyway. But as I said, he has like a lot of critics regarding his political campaign, because he's using his private television channel to promote himself while he's in jail. And as I said before, he's still in jail in this moment,
But he has an
and he's
access to
waiting.
participate in the debates.
Yes, because the higher I don't know that, because it's only the decision of the court. So we're waiting their decision. Even the higher independent institute of the election in Tunisia will didn't declare anything official about that, and we don't know anything about that. We're still waiting their decision, and even Nabil Qarwi is still waiting the decision of the judge in the next few days. So even the next few days, all the Tunisians are waiting. The political area, the party, the existing parties, what will they do, and who will support? Because in this second tour, they should support one candidate. So we will understand more the nature and uh, who will win in the second tour in the next few days. Just we're observing quietly and very wisely the political area here in Tunisia,
Yes.
and it will be like a lot of surprises, I guess, in the next future
Yes.
and in the near
I have
future.
the last question concerning the
Yeah,
international politics. Do you think that
yeah.
these two politicians already have established some relations with the international leaders from different countries? And how do you think they will try to shape the international politics in Tunisia? What would be the allies of Tunisia in case of the victory of both candidates?
Okay, so according to the campaign of Kais Said, for example, he said like he will be more closer to the Arab world and to the African countries. He will reconsider or maybe reanalyze the existing contracts between the European Union and Tunisia, especially between France, because a lot of all the civic society here in Tunisia are how can I say, are imposing to are reclaiming about some very old conventions between Tunisia and France, which like some people say like they're exploiting how can I say, using the natural resources of Tunisia by the external and international companies. So I think it will be like a new era in the international relations of Tunisia regarding the Tunisian external relation with our neighbors, with the European Union, with the African Union, with even the Arab world, I don't know because, as I said, it's not clear until now because it's still like not clear in their program. Maybe in the next few days we will know more about their strategy, international strategy, and not political, diplomatical strategy in the next future. But what the two candidates are in common, that the first state and the first country they will visit is Algeria, because you know it's our neighbor, and even we have like this tradition. Each new Tunisian president, the first country to visit is Algeria,
Yes, and
and
Algeria is not
the Arab world.
a very stable country today, and they also would have elections this autumn.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
that's true. But it's like a tradition for the Tunisian diplomatical relations.
Yes. So I can just remind our audience that the leading candidates who will fight in the second tour for the president seat, both like together gained only 1/3 of the votes, and the difference between their support is not so great. So how will the remain 2/3 of Tunisians vote in the final tour is not really clear, and it's very difficult to make forecasts now. So we'll stay tuned and watch the process. Thank you, Sama, very much. I'm very grateful that you shared your time to tell the details about the current presidential elections in Tunisia. And I hope we'll have a future communications, future interactions, and future joint projects with the organization. Uh, so, goodbye, ma salama, and see you soon.
Thank you so much, Ilya, and spasiba in Russia. Once again, I would like to thank your club, Middle East Club in HSE, especially also the Higher School of Economics students who are watching our conversation now. Thank you so much. Also, I will say that I will be visiting Moscow in the next few months, and I will be in December, so we will have the opportunity to discuss more and maybe to organize something else in this university. Thank you so much, Ilya.
Thank you, Sama. Goodbye.
Have a nice day. Bye.